A very warm welcome to all of you who join us today for this exciting session on the role of technology in strengthening the universities of the future. I'm being joined by esteemed panelists, a power-packed panel really. I would like to welcome Professor SOMAK RAYCHAUDHURY, who is the Vice-Chancellor of Ashoka University. Professor RAYCHAUDHURY has undergraduate degrees from Presidency College, University of Calcutta, and University of Oxford. Dr. RAYCHAUDHURY is also a fellow of the National Academy of Sciences. His research involves a wide range of topics in cosmology and astrophysics from the ground and from space. I would like to welcome Professor Liz Johnson, who leads the Deakin's ambitious education and employability strategy, including the drive to premium digital learning and student experience. In 2022, Deakin University conferred on Professor Johnson the title of Alfred Deakin Professor, recognizing her outstanding and sustained contribution to furthering Deakin's aims. I'm being joined by my fellow colleague from GGPU, Professor MANVEEN Singh, who is an associate professor and associate dean at Jindal Global Law School. Professor Singh is also the director of Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies and the deputy director of the Jindal Initiative on Research in IP and Competition, Jericho. Dr. Singh has received research grants from organizations such as Qualcomm and the Krakow Foundation in USA. Last but definitely not the least, I would like to welcome Professor THEAN, who is the Deputy President, Academic Affairs and Provost of the National University of Singapore. He was previously the founding Dean of NUS College of Design and Engineering and also the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering, where he is a professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. He has published over 400 technical papers and holds more than 50 US patents. I'm so delighted to have all of you as part of this exciting session on the role of technology in strengthening the universities of the future. We're of course well aware that technology is increasingly becoming mainstream and is leading to major disruptions in multiple sectors, of course, including academia. Higher education institutions can leverage available technology for optimizing operations, for reducing costs, and increasing value for all stakeholders. I think technology has also made it easier for academic institutions to not only collaborate internally within their organization, but also with other institutions inside or even outside their national boundaries, using so many tools, Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Google Talk and online shared drives, helping people work in real time with minimal costs. We have seen that tech-driven HR strategies increasingly enable geographically agnostic recruitment, I think fostering a global pool of talent for the delivery of online and hybrid courses. The integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning models, such as Microsoft 365 Copilot, I think in Microsoft Office and Excel, empowers universities to collect, to store, to analyze an extensive amount of information for data-driven decision making to optimize operations. In fact, if you talk about the recently released Copilot in MS Office and Excel, it helps analyze, explore your data. So I think the leadership, the top administrators of the universities can ask queries in natural language and not just formulas, therefore dramatically increasing its usefulness for university administrators who may not be very adept at handling and analyzing data. I think higher education institutions that take the lead, in integrating advanced technology into their day-to-day operations will certainly have a competitive advantage in the long term. With this context, I would request our esteemed panelists for their take on the role of technology in strengthening the university of the future. So I would like to first welcome Professor SOMAK RAYCHAUDHURY for his initial comments.
Thanks very much. Thank you. I think the role of universities is now being redefined continually in the Indian ecosystem. The universities were conceived as places of higher education, tertiary education, specialized pedagogical learning, and acquisition of skills. But then over the last century, universities globally have become the place for cutting edge research. Normally, these are places of research incubation. Some of these ideas blossom into entities which industry will pick up or will go global. But so as the universities become incubation centers for big ideas, research takes root in universities. Now, this is an era in which technology plays such an important part in our daily lives, as well as every aspect of global life. And so the future of research and education in universities has to be then drastically reshaped using these emerging technologies over a very, very short period. Technology comes in at the basic level of our interacting with the rest of society. And the universities in their new role also have a very, very important role in society, interacting with governments, interacting with society, interacting with fundraisers, fundraising, philanthropists, and things like that. And so a lot of the technological innovation that comes in will have to come in along with this. Now, in its daily role, a university, in its education, for example, where technology is going to change or is changing our daily experience is bringing classrooms together, where we are connecting classrooms across the country, across the world, in teaching pedagogy. And we see daily examples of how global issues are being discussed across the globe, across the world. Now, this is very, very important, of course, across cultures, in the social sciences, in humanities, in the liberal arts. This revolutionizes interactions between cultures. But you can see that in sciences as well, because sciences are emerging as a place where global collaborations are very, very important. And so connecting students with global research initiatives is very important. But in the daily classroom, technology is changing things in terms of going across time zones and going across cultures to give students in the classroom experience from across the globe. I mean, I give an example of my own teaching. I'm an astronomer, and in my classroom, I use telescopes across the world, 12 hours away, where there is night. And the students in my classroom sitting in daytime can observe the sky through an American telescope, but experience it during daytime in India. So, I mean, this kind of connections are now possible, and this has been possible for a decade now. But this technology is evolving very fast. In research, similarly, technologies, of course, are bringing researchers together. Very important thing is this just enables interdisciplinary research in a very organic way. You no longer have to serendipitously meet other academics from other departments at the cafe or over pizza. You can actually interact with people from all kinds of disciplines. They come together and build big research collaborations, either in a manner where you intend this to happen, or in a manner where you come across various ideas being discussed at meetings or conferences, without being there in person. But more importantly, technology is reshaping our interaction in the field, in the social sciences, and in the physical sciences in particular, because our research tools on the ground now can involve drones in agriculture, or can involve GPS for geography and geology, can involve a lot of technological daily tools in communication while the researcher goes out in the field. So connecting students, large groups of researchers is very, very important. And then another important dimension in research has now, in many fields, is citizen science and crowdsourcing of information. This can happen through the technological tools that are available to us. And of course, we will, in the course of this hour, talk about how AI and machine learning is shaping our research. However, there are huge challenges in there, because as the technology landscape moves very fast, it is very important that we keep up with it, and at all levels. And that's the most important thing. I think, in certain universities, in certain classrooms, technology can be adopted by certain people, but to make it universal, to make education available to a very large diversity of people, as well as these tools available to researchers at all levels, is a big challenge. And that is going to be one of the things that we have to first concentrate on, so that we can make the best use of technology in this emerging new world. I'll stop there and see what others have to say, and we'll come back to these things.
Thank you very much, Professor RAYCHAUDHURY, for your comments. Now I would like to move to Australia and ask Professor Johnson for her views, initial comments on this particular topic.
Thank you very much. And can I start by saying what a delight it is to be here? Of course, I echo many of Professor RAYCHAUDHURY's comments, because they are true globally. They are true for all of us. And I particularly echo his sentiments about the ubiquity of technology. If you think about what is the most ubiquitous piece of technology in the world, it would be a mobile phone. It's pretty difficult to go somewhere in the world where there's nobody with a mobile phone, and the reach of mobile phones has been extensive. I was just looking today at what kind of depth of uptake it has, and it varies from 70 to 90% depending on who you're talking to. At that kind of level, sophisticated technology is in everybody's pocket, which, as Professor RAYCHAUDHURY says, means that universities must be digitally savvy, they must be digitally prepared, and they must incorporate digital technologies into all of their activities. So I come from a learning and teaching background. The university that I work for, Deakin University, is in the bottom south-east corner of Australia, and Australia is a place with very big distances between centres. For us, digital technologies are critically important. They're also challenging in that Australia, of all places, does not have universal coverage of its landmass by digital technology, surprisingly. And so we face those challenges around digital divide, as is faced elsewhere in the world. Deakin, however, is an interesting case in point. My university was established with twin missions for both on-campus and remote teaching. Remote teaching started for us by postage, but it very quickly moved to the internet as that appeared. We were early adopters in the 1980s and continued that with a series of digital transformations. The most recent one, a major transformational project that started in 2014. We are a multi-campus university, which means that we work across campuses up to 100 kilometres apart all the time. Most meetings that I'm in, there is somebody doing exactly what we are doing today, which is joining the meeting online. And so we expect to operate in that way. And that mimics what's happening out in the community. That mimics real life. And as Professor RAYCHAUDHURY said, and I'm sure others will echo, this is the way industry operates. Our graduates are going to go out into industry, and they must be prepared for a digital world. So to state the obvious, universities must be future-facing, and they must be digital to be future-facing. In fact, it's very difficult to imagine how they could operate otherwise. All universities in the world are digital already to varying degrees. Most all universities and education providers in the world will use some kind of digital technology to manage their enrolments, manage their students and their staff. Most of those providers will actually provide resources to students digitally. Our own library here, although I must say I love entering a room full of books. In fact, something upwards of 98% of its borrowings are digital. They're not about attending campus to pick up a book anymore. And that's because information is digital. When we want to know something, our first port of call is a browser online, either on our phone or on our computer. So our graduates need digital fluency to flourish in the world. And by digital fluency, I mean enough familiarity, awareness, and comfort and confidence working with digital tools that they can move seamlessly from one platform to another. It's not platform specific. It's an idea of how you operate in a contemporary world. And we expect our graduates to do that. Now, another aspect of Deakin that's quite interesting is that we have a lot of students who are returning to study. So we have a fairly large cohort of school leavers, as many universities do. We also have a large cohort of students who are returning to study. They're looking to upgrade their professional qualifications, to extend them, or to change fields. And all those students also need to polish up their digital skills so that when they move back into a graduate employment market, they have contemporary skills to take with them. So lifelong learning, which is a focus for Deakin, is also a very important facet of being digitally literate and digitally fluent. Of course, as Professor RAYCHAUDHURY points out, research is also digital. It's been online for a long time in terms of its publication methodologies. And as you pointed out, Professor, it's now online in terms of gathering and sharing data. I note that the World Wide Web was actually born at the CERN Large Particle Accelerator in Geneva. It is a product of digital technology, a product of research, and they feed back into it. And I'm sure we will get to generative AI in this conversation very soon. I think the question about change and keeping up with digital transformation is the challenge that's ahead of us, particularly as digital transformations accelerate and change pace. And we only need to look at the advent of widespread generative AI availability to see just how fast and at what scale that can happen. So that is our challenge, but then we are institutions of ideas and learning, and I'm sure that we can rise to the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Johnson, for those insights. Coming back to India now, and I would like to go to my colleague in JGU, Professor MANVEEN Singh, for his initial comments of the topic.
Thank you so much, Professor Mayank. Firstly, it's an absolute privilege to be a part of such an esteemed panel. And I mean, this is honestly a topic which is very dear to me, simply because I'm not only, or I consider myself not only a student of law, but technology law, to be honest, because my area of research is and teaching is primarily intellectual property law. And over the last few years, what we've seen is that, we are not governing technology around us, so we are not really governing the devices that we are surrounded by. It's rather the other way around. We pretty much have technology governing us from the morning till the night, because we start our daily routine by picking up our mobile phones and looking at missed calls, messages, email notifications, so on and so forth. And we end our day pretty much by again scrolling through our phone screens and looking at what has happened during the day and what is likely to happen over the next few days, and what are the current developments, which therefore obviously also means that technology is kind of making it very easy for dissemination of information and knowledge, and that's something that probably was fast-tracked during the COVID era, because in the lead up to COVID, towards the end of 2019 and beginning 2020, we were pretty much proceeding towards a more technologically advanced environment. But those 1.5 to 2 years literally fast-tracked everything, that we were kind of pushed into this ecosystem where technology occupied a pretty much an integral position in how we were supposed to go about our daily routines. That of course included education at the forefront, because we just couldn't allow institutions to come to a standstill. More importantly, higher education institutions to come to a standstill, because it really concerns the future of our younger generations and their ability to complete their degrees on time and to navigate their way through the pandemic. But technology actually played a massive role, and one of the reasons why I would say that is because it kind of brought that inner resilience out of everybody, and made us realize that, well, we could achieve literally anything And it's not really a question of, oh, how technologically savvy you are or how much you are willing to make yourself technologically savvy. It was more of a compulsion to keep pace with what was going on around us, which therefore meant that institutions around the world had to quickly navigate their way through the pandemic by the adoption of audiovisual platforms such as Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Meet, WebEx, so on and so forth. And there was very little time actually for this transition because you had to kind of squeeze in all the training and informative sessions scheduled for all the stakeholders involved, whether it is the university administration, whether it is the faculty members, whether it is the students or the parents for that matter, for them all to be aware of the fact as to how the daily routine was supposed to be carried out in terms of the functioning of the university systems, and also more importantly, how education was supposed to not be disrupted, yet at the same time the learning not be compromised. Because one of the foremost aspects of the use of technology is that the moment we shift to a virtual sort of a room or a virtual setting or a virtual setup, what really tends to get affected is our ability to judge or read the body language of people around us. I mean, when we step into a physical classroom, what we very easily are able to figure out is the fact that about 60% of the students are attentive, and that about 20% are kind of half there, half not there, and then the remaining ones probably are somewhere else, and it allows us to actually, over the course of those 2.5 hours, ensure that come the end of the lecture, we have pretty much everybody with us by kind of having a one-to-one interaction with them. In a virtual setup, it's not that easy, of course, there are downsides to that, but I would say, it's been a massive positive simply because of the fact that, you probably are able to share much more than sometimes you can in a physical setup because there are so many resources at your disposal, so many softwares at your disposal, and the content sharing features that are embedded very much within all these audiovisual platforms. Therefore, what can really happen is you could use the whiteboard actually while teaching. So not only are the students seeing you, not only are they seeing the slides that you're sharing, but also at the same time, what they are able to see is there's something that you are explaining probably through a flow chart or some sort of a graph being drawn in real time. And they're being able to look at that all at once, which of course is possible in a classroom as well. But what tends to happen is that, given how our future generations are, or how the so-called alpha generation or the Generation Z is, they are very much into technology, and something that pulls them towards technology is the fact that they've grown up with that pretty much, in terms of their years growing up, or the teenage years overlapping with this monumental growth and advancement that technology has seen. I mean, look at the pace at which standards are developing in today's date. Not that long ago, we were probably, struggling to get 3G onto our phones. And the transition from edge to 2G to 3G was something that was probably, quite stretched. And what we've seen in the last couple of standards is from 3G to 4G and 4G to 5G, it's been a pretty kind of short interval, which therefore also goes on to show that the pace at which technological advancement is taking place, we have our tasks cut out pretty much, because as education institutions, not only are we supposed to implement these state-of-the-art technologies and kind of ensure that students are able to at the same time learn how to operate these technologies, while also being very well aware of the fact that these technologies are the future. And that of course requires on the part of institutions, which I personally feel is very important, is to have a certain set of courses in the form of elective courses, maybe, that are on the interface of maybe law and technology, or primarily technology law, or business and technology, where they are taught things like data analytics, artificial intelligence and machine learning and Internet of Things, because that is very much the future. I mean, imagine a refrigerator telling you what veggies you are running short on. That's technology in today's state, and that's a reality that has pretty much become a reality. And of course, we've seen a lot of debate about generative AI and the regulatory aspects of how to ensure that this technological advancement also has a certain safety net attached to it, so that we don't end up kind of leaving ourselves in an age of or leading ourselves rather to the age of transformers. Right? We still are humans. We will continue to be humans, and machines are there to, of course, support us and to ensure that we have a smooth sail. But I mean, I'll talk more on that shortly, and I'm sure we'll talk on the specific aspects of technology as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Singh, for your initial thoughts on the topic. Let me now quickly go over to Singapore, to Professor Aaron, for his initial comments on this area.
Professor, thank you, the organizers of this summit, for inviting me to talk about this. I think most of my points I wanted to make already been made, actually. So I'm just going to echo a few things. I feel that, the role of technology in terms of university, I think technology is kind of inevitable. We're going to be impacted by this. I think for that 1,000 years of history for universities in general, I think, universities are always places for learning, are always impacted by technology of its time. I think the challenge is, as already said, is how do we keep up with technology? Because today we see this acceleration of technology evolving quickly, and our students probably learn to use technology faster than us. So that's already an asymmetry in the problem, right? For a university to be able to keep up with the technology and even keep ahead, because we are responsible for training the next generation of people who will be using and be creating these technologies. How do we do that? I think that's a major challenge, especially when you see that the fact that the university has responsibility on what content we teach our students, the validation of those content. And so we cannot, in logic, be jumping from one technology to another untested. So this is one of the biggest challenge we have, which is how do you have a stable pedagogy, stable curriculum that ensures quality of teaching and learning, at the same time be able to be at the forefront of something that's at the horizon of technology, right? So that's one challenge. Now, the other very ironic thing about technology is, we are, as the previous speakers have been has said, we are, whether we like it or not, we are awash with technology, right? And I think the question becomes, what is the value proposition of a physical university if everything is digital, right? And what is the value we are delivering as a physical brick and mortar institution? And so that is another thing that we need to answer. I think, is the human experience in terms of physical environment, the social aspect becoming more important with technology evolving and becoming more dominant in our society? So these are the two things I felt are important to talk about in this topic, as in terms of strengthening universities in the face of technology. Right, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Aaron. I think we've had fantastic insights on this topic. In fact, it's a very important question that in this day and age when tech is becoming so mainstream, I think especially for brick and mortar institutions like ourselves with significant capital expenditure, on different aspects of a physical university, on faculty, on infrastructure, on various facilities, I think it's very important for us to make sure that we are on top of technology and trying to give them the best value to our students, to our the parents of the students, to all our faculty, staff, and all the stakeholders. So I would like to now go to Professor Johnson and take her views as to what tech innovations are happening at Deakin, and what has been the impact of these innovations in the area of technology. And then I would like to come over to India and ask Professor RAYCHAUDHURY the same question. Professor Johnson, over to you.
Thank you. It's digital technologies come in waves and we adopt at varying paces depending on what we're trying to achieve. So as I said earlier, learning management systems or virtual learning environments, whatever you want to call them, have been around for some time. And I think the most recent wave of those was this idea of the digital learning ecosystem, where you have a central system of record decorated with apps, if you like, but platforms which will deliver specific benefits in particular ways. And I think that's a really important concept that we take forward, thinking back on Professor THEAN's point about how we change for the future, to think about what sits at the centre and then what is variable around it. One of the things that we've really looked hard at is, when is it right to use technology and when is it right to use the digital campus, to come back to that topic again? And the answer is really, what are you trying to achieve? If you're trying to teach your students data analysis, you would be crazy to do anything other than do it digitally, because actually all data analysis is digital. If you are trying to teach them to work in a group and communicate with each other, you might use both, a virtual group and a localized group. If you're taking them out on a field trip and you actually want them to see an ecosystem, then it's probably better to do it physically, because the simulation is not going to be as rich as the real thing. So it comes down to, what are you trying to achieve? So when we look at our technological advances, we look at them in terms of what are we trying to achieve, and underpinning that have a series of base platforms. Now, the challenge that we have at the moment, we've just been going through a wave of what my professionally technological friends call intelligent automation. So what processes can we take and turn them into automated processes so that we're reducing administrative load inside the university? Deakin is a very big university. We've got 60,000 students. We've got 5,000 staff. And so the administrative load and the organisational load that comes with that is quite high. And so one of our targets with technological innovation is to reduce that load. At the same time, we have to make space for the innovation, and we can talk endlessly about what kind of capabilities we need to have to support research innovation with technology. But I think the big ideas here is to think about why you want change. And do you want to change the central piece, or do you want to change the functions that sit around it? And then also to think about many layers within the university: learning and teaching, research, business enterprises, data management.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Professor Johnson. Let me, get an Indian perspective. So the same question I would like to ask Professor Raychaudhuri from Ashoka University.
Thanks, Dr. Mack. I mean, I think very much in the same vein, we are seeing this change happen in the Indian ecosystem. I mean, certainly at Ashoka, which is a liberal arts university where interdisciplinarity is a very important thing. And so the connections between the social sciences and humanities and the sciences are a priority. And this is very much now being enabled by a lot of technological tools. If you remember, in the social sciences, the data analysis, if you in the good old days, was through SPSS, which was a very clunky package that you would use on these early platforms. And now somebody who does humanities and social sciences data research has access to so many amazing data visualization and analysis tools, not just simple regression using this clunky stuff. But I mean, we talked about data gathering. Data gathering is being enabled on a global scale now, and researchers are being connected with within the country as well as with the international communities. This actually started long before the pandemic, and the pandemic, what it did was it focused within those 2 years. Where we were confined and had to work from our own spaces, just accelerated the pace of interaction during with the global community in particular. Now, what has also happened is that it has brought technology in the classroom in a big way within a very short period of time, and so we are looking at experiential learning, sitting in classrooms, where you can bring in resources from the surroundings, from the larger ecosystem within the classroom. This is happening at all levels in India, not just at a university like Ashoka University, which is a private university with 3,000 students doing liberal arts, research and training, but at colleges, at tier 2, tier 3 cities, as well as universities run by the state and by the government. The nature of the classroom is changing. One of the major challenges we've had at universities, how to connect the different levels of learning. How do school students transition to university? This connection has always been a problem because you know what they learn, what students learn in schools, and the diversity of schools in various states in India, for example, and the various levels, various boards. And at university, you have to synthesize them together and make sure that they are on par before they acquire the tools that are standardized at the university level. This is being facilitated in a huge way through these online learning mediums. And at Ashoka, for example, we have the programs for school students, which are very, very extensive, where we reach out to students as early as 4 years before university level, and to make sure that we understand their requirements, what they're learning, and also giving out information about what you would get at the university level, and so students can get prepared for university. And this is happening, I'm not just at a university, but at a global level, students have this access to university teaching and research and their levels, and they can experience university classrooms well before they come into university, so that they get prepared for it. So this I think is very, very important for this connectivity. It also shows how we can increase accessibility in teaching. In India, for example, there's such a diversity of backgrounds from which students come, and by going online and connecting with online learning, one can reach, because as Professor Johnson said, everybody has a mobile phone, and so through their mobile phones, very simple ways of connecting a classroom situated at a university with the global, by global I mean within the country, anywhere, the corners of the country, we can reach people who can experience what is being taught, and thus the university now has this responsibility of making sure this is done in a responsible manner and an inclusive manner. And it has changed actually the entire the landscape of accessibility. People who were traditionally unable to go to university or unable to access certain kinds of universities can access such things now. The other thing we also are seeing now is in university governance and administration. You can actually have data-driven decision-making at all levels. Analytical tools are giving us access to student data, their background data, their attendance records, their mental health data. All that kind of thing can be integrated to make sure that we can deliver a better experience for students, as well as have a well-oiled system of administration in which we can deliver things. So from the university's running point of view, things are changing quite a lot with technology. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor RAYCHAUDHURY. In fact, you raised an important point, because we have discussed teaching and we have discussed research, but administration also is one of the very important aspects of and certainly technology is making a lot of impact there. So let me go to National University of Singapore, Professor Aaron, and try to get his views on how is technology helping streamline the governance and the administrative process of an institution. So perspectives from Singapore.
Okay, so I guess the question is how technology has helped us streamline processes. I think obviously, it's very similar to many universities around the world. I think sort of COVID awakened us to sort of how quickly technology can be implemented, right? Actually, it's a testament to actually the human motivation more than anything, because prior to COVID, we never thought that people can actually introduce technology in such a transformative way in such a short time. Given the right incentive, we can do it. And I think at NUS, I think we did the same. Obviously, it started off with effectively collecting data on our students and our staff in general, in terms of their presence on the university, managing the, so-called the interactions during the COVID period. But now those systems are evolved, and they have now collected information more on the learning, teaching, occupation of the lecture rooms and stuff like. So from a resource utilization point of view, I think we have improved tremendously with the use of technology. I think in top of that, I think, in terms of, the physical aspects of running the university, in terms of the energy and its monitoring temperatures, energy use across campus. So a lot of these things and the bolts and nuts of operating a university, it's all there. The technology is now aiding in a lot of that. And soon, I think we will have effectively the help of AI to help us make decisions on a lot of the operations of the university itself. And obviously with a lot more digitalization, even on the teaching and learning side, we're now rolling out more programs with that incorporates the use of technology and AI into material preparation, dissemination. And the most obvious thing is that, when you go to digitalize content and online content, is really you can enhance reach and access for those materials. Students enjoy them, and we can even access even greater population of students, not only in NUS but outside. So those are the areas that technology is helping. On the flip side, I'd like to pivot also to on the question that in terms of our students' experience, we also balance it with a lot more human-centric components, and that's important because if you have all this technology on one hand and you're missing all this part about community service, experiencing the social aspect, leadership training, you lose a big part of a student experience on campus. So those are the areas that we kind of balance in. And the way we have done it is that we have sort of revamped our common curriculum across the university. We are trying to incorporate all these basic learning into the general education requirement for our students.
Thank you very much, Professor Aaron. Professor MANVEEN, let me come over to you and ask you about the role of technology in the area of collaborative research work. Now, given your background, what changes do you see happening there? How easy it is now to do impactful research across national borders with people across different geographies and different institutions?
Thank you so much for that question, Dr. Mike. Let me begin by actually, talking about a tangential aspect of collaborative research. That is kind of this virtual engagement that has been made possible through the increasing growth of technology. From a classroom perspective, what we've observed is that, of course, taking a cue from what happened during the COVID period and what continues to happen even now. It's not like what happened during COVID kind of ended with COVID. Universities around the world took a cue, and academics around the world took a cue from what was possible during that period of about 2 years, and what is possible, or what is sustainable rather, even in the post-COVID era. And that is guest lectures being delivered by experts around the world or foreign academics. Especially from an Indian perspective, let me quote the example of Jindal. What we've been doing so far is we've had so many guests over from around the world, from our partner institutions and our visitors from different academic institutions around the world. And we've always ensured that there's something to give to the students, and something that all of these learned academics have to offer to the students. Therefore, you end up organizing guest lectures where the person is very much present in person. However, what has been made pretty accessible through the use of technology is the fact that someone sitting in Stockholm in Sweden can in real time deliver a lecture to the students in my elective, and that is to do with what exactly is happening in the European Union at this very moment, and something that is about to radically change how patented technologies are perceived of, let's say, for example, in Europe, and what exactly is the future of technology. Now, if I were to compare this with a scenario where the person has to come down, or I have to rather wait for the person to someday come down and then organize the lecture, by then probably a lot of things would have changed. But how technology has made it possible is, and I link it with research now. Now, due to this continuous engagement with academics or between academics, across borders, collaborative research has seen an upturn in its fortunes. And what we've seen is more and more cross institution collaborations are taking place in the area or in the domain of research, which has also kind of fostered a very healthy sort of an ecosystem, whereby sharing of resources, sharing of information, data, and of course, whatever is going on in the respective jurisdictions is to be kind of included as a part of that research. Now, if there is empirical research to be carried out in India and in a European country, there is no need for the two people to actually meet in person. They could be in their respective jurisdictions through the use of technology, software tools, and of course, all the latest developments in the area of data analytics. They can actually analyze whatever data they've been able to get their hands onto without much scope of an error. Because we know that with the increase in technology, the possibility or the likelihood of error is kind of reducing by the day. Of course, there are challenges, of course, that are attached to it. But having said that, it has in a great amount benefited academics around the world. More than academics, let me say, students are also benefiting, because what I have also seen over the last, personally speaking, about 3-4 years is that more and more students are collaborating with academics, with faculty members. And this faculty-student collaboration in terms of research is probably the biggest positive to come out of higher education institutions, because you get a mentor for a student who's really interested in writing and research and publications, and they also get a sense of direction in their lives, and gives them much more clarity on what they wish to do, in what area they wish to pursue a career in, what line of law, what field they are most interested in. And video conferencing, online meetings, sharing of data, using tools embedded very much in these learning management systems is something that has kind of given rise to an ecosystem where we could easily say that we are very much staring at the future of research, because it's always important to have a global perspective on any issue, for that matter, unless and until it is specific to a particular jurisdiction. And probably the best way or the most practical way of bringing in global perspectives is to ensure there is collaboration between global academics or academics sitting in different parts of the world in different jurisdictions. And that is something that technology has easily been able to foster. I would just conclude by saying that gone are the days when the main term used to be KYC, which is know your customer. The new term is KYD. KYC has been replaced by KYD. KYD stands for know your data. So when we talk about data, probably the most important thing in furtherance of that data analysis is to ensure that you are able to analyze it quickly without much of an error and use it to the best of your abilities. And that is something that technology is really, really helping in the area of research. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for those insights. Now, of course, we've talked about, different kind of technologies, different aspects of technologies, and how they're, impacting the higher education setup, the education, ecosystem in general. Let me, ask basically your perspective on which particular technology will have the most profound impact on the brick and mortar higher education institutions in the next 5 to 10 years. So if we look at the next 5 to 10 years, which technology will have the most profound impact? This is coming from our audience. And let me take, perspectives from two different, setups, one in India and Singapore, Ashoka, and NUS Singapore, two very, different institutions, different geographies. So let me first ask Professor RAYCHAUDHURY, your assessment of which particular technology you think will have the most profound impact in the next 5 to 10 years, as far as the brick and mortar, higher education institutions are concerned.
Well, I think I'll give you the boring answer, and that is the bread and butter job of a university is to deliver the learning and teaching to the students. So I'll give you two answers. One is the regular medium in which we do teaching, and that is through the learning management systems and the academic management systems. These are changing day by day and are incorporating a very wide range of things that we have traditionally done. I mean, we've used AMSs before in, for example, assessing student submissions, plagiarism checks and stuff like that. But now it is the way of interacting between teachers and students through various teaching assistants and fellows and things like that. And these are now being embellished with connections to libraries, connections to the internet, putting academic resources in the academic management systems, and so on and so forth. And now even online links are embedded in them and things like that. So they become the virtual classroom. And of course, the classroom is not virtual. It can happen. It is happening in a real space, but it just means that the academic management system becomes a larger ecosystem in which the actual classroom is embedded. For example, I could, record my lecture and post it on my AMS before I come into the classroom, and the classroom can become just a way of discussing my lecture and things like that. So this just enables the teacher and the student to interact in various planes and bring in associated material, which I think this is going to become very important. And you talked about the bread and butter stuff. As far as research is concerned, and that's my second answer, one of the major ways students interact, have their first experience of research, is go for research internships, or have a first taste of research by actually doing small projects with academics. Now, through technology, one can do this in a very, very international sense or a global sense. And our students, I find, are now doing little research projects, even from the very first, second year of undergraduate experience, with not just academics at our own university, but in other universities all across, with our collaborators, with people they find on the net and things like that. So the way internships work is going to change drastically. The way students get their first, draw their first blood in the research world, for example, is going to change quite a bit with these virtual interactions. And the way they are now, it can be very cleverly integrated with their classroom teaching as well. This is going to change quite a bit.
Thank you very much. Let me now quickly go to Professor Aaron and get his views as to which particular technology will have the most profound impact in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so I have two to name. Actually, I mean, they are very obvious. I mean, there's already happening. So first one obviously is AI, and specifically generative AI. I think it caught us by surprise that it got to be so disruptive, in the sense that now it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. So how do you teach content when students come to you with content that they figured out with AI? So that AI, the generative AI combined with online content is really a very difficult thing to do. When it comes to institution in the past, we sort of vet our material, we curate them, and now it's sort of filtered through through the online content provider and then picked up by generative AI. So that's one. The second one, it's already also already happening, which is social media. It will continue to be a dominant force. The reason why is because social media amplifies voice, and not everybody's voice equally. And so you may not get a diversified voice. And that's also very difficult, because especially for students in humanities, we're looking at views and stuff like that. Obviously social media, it's behind it, there is an engine that sort of feeds, continue to feed content that's sort of geared towards targeted for audience. So that those two technology will continue to evolve, and they will dominate and challenge the educational institutions. What is truth ultimately? I think that it's a very, very difficult thing to do, especially to teach our students. in the face of these technology advances.
Thank you very much, Professor Oren. We are only 6 minutes left, so we are running out of time. But let me go over to Deakin in Australia. Deakin, of course, is a very large university. Recently, they've also opened a campus in India. So multiple geographies, multiple courses, online, offline, I think hybrid. So, Professor Johnson, so this is coming from the audience. And, let me ask you that how can universities effectively measure the impact of technology on the learning outcomes? Because, we have discussed that on the screen, it's very hard to sort of detect the body language, and sometimes for the instructor, it becomes a bit of a challenge in terms of really know if the learning outcomes are being achieved or not. So what are your thoughts on, how can we actually effectively measure whether the technology is having the desired outcomes, especially in a virtual context?
It's a tricky question. There is large bodies of literature of educational research which looks at this in depth, but I'll make a few remarks about what we can do in the moment. The first thing is to think about how do we get any evidence around learning outcomes or student engagement, and it's by looking at three things. We really look at what students tell us, so student perceptions. We look at what they do, so student behaviour. Do they attend? Do they participate? Do they submit? And then we look at what they produce. What's the artefact of learning that we're looking for? And the interesting thing for me, there are variations in all those three things, but they apply equally whether you're on campus or online. You should be collecting data no matter what the mode is that the students are engaging with you. And the advantage of doing it around online is that every student has a digital footprint. So there's a great deal of data, there's the lake of data, the sea of data that we're swimming in, which our platforms collect every time either we or our students interact with them. And coming back to some topics that were raised before, one of the rising necessary capabilities inside universities is to look at what's called learning analytics, learning or educational analytics. And that looks broadly at student perceptions. What do they tell us? What do they do? When do they log onto the LMS? What resources do they collect from the library? What do they have a timely submission? Do they ask for extra time? Do they collaborate with others? All these things are recorded in digital footprints and you can look at them. And the same is true for outputs. You can parse those electronically. Generative AI, while a challenge around assessment, is also an asset. It helps us to look at what's inside that assessment and what's going on as students develop their responses. So it's quite a complex environment, but there's a lot of data there. Actually, the tricky bit is not the data, it's interpreting the data. It's trying to work out what's really going on. And like any multivariate analysis, you've got to look at the bits of evidence that come together to support your understanding of what students are actually doing. However, the one thing I would say about graduate outcomes is that everything we assess is a proxy for learning. You don't actually know what's going on in the student's head. And in fact, the real test of that is when they leave you and they go and they apply that learning in the real world. So what we hear from our alumni and our industry partners, what's coming back to the university, is also critically important in understanding. Deakin is interesting because it can compare on-campus and online students. What we know is that both learning modes are valuable, but they are different. And if you use the same tools to look at both of them, you're missing a trick. You need to look at them each as different phenomena. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much. I'll just take quick comments from MANVEEN as well. MANVEEN, you mentioned about the engagement, and sometimes it can get a bit challenging. So quick comments. I'm getting prompts from the IT team to stop at 1 p.m. So, parting thoughts on that, MANVEEN.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. And I'll try to kind of keep it very short. See, engagement is something which is very much integral to this entire knowledge dissemination. Therefore, when we talk about technology, it is also important to ensure that we are getting the desired output out of the use of several technological tools. And probably one of the most important aspects with respect to measuring all of that is the fact that there should be adequate amount of training and this aspect of learning at the behest of students. Now, university administration plays a big role there, because you can't possibly expect students to straight away come to the classroom, whether it is virtual or physical, the next morning and already know what exactly is in store for them and how they're supposed to deal with that. It's extremely important for there to be proper pilot sessions, training sessions for both sides of the stakeholders, whether it is the faculty member or the students, and for them to ensure, for the university to ensure that they are adequately prepared to reap the benefits or the use of that technology. Of course, what we've seen so far is that generative AI has had some amount of impact, but there's also a negative side to it, and the ethical considerations that have been already talked about. Now, until and unless students are actually passed on that knowledge with respect to how to correctly use, if at all it is to be constructively used in any given manner, whether it is a cross-checking mechanism or, for the matter, just a basic initial level dissemination. It's important for them to actually know that, and probably the best placed authority there is the universities and the higher education institutions, for them to impart to the students the necessary ethical considerations that are to be kept in mind before they go on and start using these generative AIs. I think time will keep me away from talking further than this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think we're almost on time. It's 1 p.m., so we'll have to stop here. But on behalf of OP Jindal Global University, let me thank all of you for taking out time for this session. We are so grateful, and thank you very much. And I hope that we get another opportunity to engaging on some other interesting topic. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.